Hey guys, this is Daniel. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the functions of the Behringer X Touch Mini in Logic in Mackie control mode. So this is a control surface. It's the smallest one out of the Behringer X Touch series. It has 8 rotary encoders. Under those 8, we have 2 rows of 8 buttons, right? So we have 16 buttons. To the right of all that, we have a fader. It's not motorized, just a heads up. And then to the right of that, we have 2 more buttons. Okay, now in Mackie control, these buttons and rotary encoders are already auto mapped. Okay, they already have assignments and very intricate mappings that already come, and they're very useful. In my opinion, they've kind of helped me speed some things up in my workflow, giving me some tactile knobs to turn. Okay, and this is an audio demo, so I'll be using it with VoiceOver, the Mac screen reader. But I just wanted to kind of give an overview to those that are interested in possibly purchasing one. So it's just an overview of the functions of it. So I just want to go over what the basic functions are with this device. Okay, so let's start with the bottom 8 buttons from left to right. Okay, from left, the first button, bottom left, is your auto punch. Okay, your next button is your replace button. That's a record mode, I believe. I did remap it to play from selection. I found that very useful for me. The next 2 are rewind and fast forward. I also had to remap these, okay, because X Touch Mini doesn't have plugin parameter buttons. Okay, so whenever you're scrolling through plugin parameters, you can unless you map some buttons, okay, or remap some buttons to those functions. Okay, so I have rewind and fast forward. Okay, 5th button is cycle. 6th one is stop, then play, and then record. Okay, pretty simple. The top 8, okay, the ones that are right under the encoders, get a little more interesting. Okay, we're gonna go over each button quickly, and then kind of focus on a few of them. Okay, because they have like multiple functions, I guess you could say. So starting at the top left, we have our metronome button, right?
Metronome on, metronome off.
Okay, you heard my voiceover say metronome. And then the next button we have is solo. Okay, by default, it was mapped to solo mode, which was kind of weird. I didn't really prefer it, so I changed it to toggle track solo. Okay, so you can reassign these buttons to key commands. Okay, so whenever I hit this button, it's like hitting S on the keyboard. Okay, computer keyboard. 3rd button is your channel view and channel select button. Okay, it's a pretty important button right there. 4th button is your sends. All right, so your 8 rotary encoders are going to now control the first send on your 8 tracks. Okay, 5th button is your pan, so now the encoders control pan. 6th button is your plugin button. It's another fun button that I use a lot. 7th button is your EQs. Okay, and then your 8th button is your instrument. Okay, so I just want to go back and talk about the 3rd button really quickly. So the 3rd button is your channel view, right? Channel select. So by default, usually when you turn on the device, it's going to be in channel view mode, which means that the 8 rotary encoders are basically controlling the volume, all right, for each of the 8 tracks. And the way I've discovered that I think it's how this works is that if you want to go to track 9, you would obviously have to select track 9 within Logic, and now your 8 have moved over 1, right? So when they first represented 1 through 8, tracks 1 through 8, when you move to 9, now it's 2 through 9. Okay, if that makes sense. All right, so let's say if you're in track 12, now it's going to be tracks 5 through 12, right? So I hope that makes sense. But anyway, so by default, the X Touch Mini is going to control your track volumes. Okay, but if you hit the button again, okay, so I'm going to go to my drum track here. I have a project here.
Tracks group.
Let's see.
In tracks legend, tracks header. In track 1, track 2, drums. Group.
Okay, drums. I'm focused on drums. So if I hit the track button again, here's the 3rd button on the top.
Okay. Drums, dialogue, drums.
What Logic does is that it opens the first plugin on that channel. But the funny thing is that it really doesn't do anything, right? With this plugin specifically, unless you call it up again. Okay, so I'm gonna hit Command W.
Now in new.
Okay, so now where the 8 rotary encoders were controlling volume across tracks, now they're controlling different aspects of this one track that I have selected. Okay, so so the first rotary encoder controls your volume. So I'm just going to demonstrate.
4 beats, 4 division, 222 ticks. 6 bars, 1 beat, 1 division, 1 tick. 6
some
bars, 4 beats,
volume.
6 bars, 4 beats, 1 division, 8 ticks.
Right, and you can click it to come back. Second rotary controls pan.
9 bars, 3 beats, 1 division, 51 ticks. 12 bars, 4 beats, 4 divisions, 143 ticks.
Your third button actually controls your instrument plugin. So you would click that and it would open up your instrument plugin, and you can control now the parameters within that plugin. Okay, your fourth and fifth rotary encoders are going to each launch the plugins, plugin slot 1 and slot 2. Okay, so for me, if I wanted to open, say, the EQ plugin that was in slot 1, I know it's in slot 1, so I can just simply hit the rotary encoder 4.
Drums, dialogue, drums,
okay.
dialogue.
And you see that logic, or you hear that logic just opened up my EQ. Okay, so just
12 bars, 4 beats, 4 divisions, 124 ticks.
Right, so you just click the encoder to bring it back to its default state. Okay, so yeah, and then so that's fourth and fifth encoder. Your sixth and seventh control your sends for this track. Okay, so that's pretty much it for that. I'm gonna hit the track button again to get out of this window. So that's the third button.
Now in new instrumental 7 tracks.
And like we said, fourth and fifth are your sends and pans. Your sixth button is another button that I use. This is an interesting one. So if you hit it once, okay, it'll open up the first plugin for whichever rotary encoder you click on. Okay, so let's say you have a plugin on slot 1 in track 4. Then you would hit the sixth button once and click on the fourth rotary encoder, and it will open that first plugin, and now you can control the parameters of that plugin. Okay, but if you want to access other plugins within a given channel strip, say you want to access plugin number 2 or 3 or 4, then you would have to select that track within Logic, hit the sixth button twice. Okay, now each rotary encoder represents a plugin slot. Okay, so I know I have a compressor on track on slot 2 here in the drums. So I'm gonna hit the sixth button twice, and now I'm gonna hit rotary encoder 2.
Drums, dialogue.
All
drums,
right.
dialogue.
And now we have our compressor called up. Okay. Yeah, so like I said, I have my rewind and fast forward mapped to plugin parameter pages. So what I do by default is just kind of hit rewind a few times just to make sure I'm at the top, and then start,
10 bars, 1 beat,
manipulating the parameters here with my 8 rotary encoders. Okay, I have noticed that Logic does have a neat way of laying out the parameters with its own native plugins, which is kind of cool. For example, the first rotary encoder kind of lets you choose between circuit types within the compressor, and then it's the second encoder that actually lets you lower the threshold and so forth. So
9 bars, 4 beats, 4 division, 222 ticks.
So I'm gonna solo.
Toggle channel strip solo on.
Okay guys, and you just click the button to return it to its default state, right? Alright, so I hope this tutorial was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and take care.